a rabbi, and he feels like he's a really good guy, and the way he feels he's going to get his son to have this operation is by taking him along to one of every milestone event that a rabbi officiates at. So over the course of the book, he brings him to a funeral, a circumcision, bat mitzvah, and a wedding, which is actually his ex-wife's wedding, to his cardiologist. So this little section that I'm going to read you is when he takes him to a circumcision or a bris. Is that everybody knows what that is? Right? Okay, so and the only other thing you might need to know about this, or maybe not, because I'm reading something that's 153 pages into the book, is that he has recently spent a little time with his ex-wife who's about to get married because of their pregnant daughter, and they recently just had a romantic moment that is stuck in his head, so he's actually falling in love with his ex-wife again, and kind of a bad time to do that. I'm not sure there's a good time to fall in love with your ex-wife. Anyway, the baby boy is carried in by his grandmother on a pillow. He's wearing an ornate white bedshirt and a tiny white skull cap affixed to his head with 2 white straps. The crowd gathered in the large, festively decorated living room comes to a hushed silence. For a moment there is no sound but the click and flash of the photographer shooting the infant relentlessly, as the grandmother, who is wearing so much makeup that she looks like a wax dummy, walks him into the center of the room. The women smile and cluck as the baby comes into view. His mother, looking frail and deflated in her maternity dress, smiles, but Silver can feel her ambivalence toward this ritual as if it's his own. Or maybe it is his own, and he's just projecting. Baruch haba, the Moel chants, "Blessed is the one who arrives," meaning the baby, who at this moment is anything but blessed. The Mohel is the guy who does the circumcision. The rabbi is there to kind of do what he does, but the Mohel is the guy who does it. In case you didn't know. Most people who watch Seinfeld know that. The infant is just getting over the trauma of his birth, flushed from the warmth of the womb on a harrowing, claustrophobic journey through the birth canal, and then thrust mercilessly into the cold, harsh light of the world. And now, 8 days later, just as he's begun to develop a taste for breast milk and oxygen, and is thinking that he might be able to make a go of things here, a strange man is going to pull down his diaper and take a scalpel to his minuscule cock. Silver has to clamp down on the overpowering urge to snatch him from his wax dummy grandmother, tuck him under his arm like a football, and run him to safety. The baby's mother, Susie, is on the fence. Silver is almost positive this sort of disturbance will be enough to make her reconsider the whole enterprise. She is in her late 20s, pretty and plump, and he's pretty sure, reading her expression, that this was not her idea. She converted to Judaism in order to marry Evan, which probably seemed like a good idea at the time, but now her son will pay the price. Evan stands at the head of the room between Reuben and the Mohel in a designer suit and a large black yarmulke, creased and worn askew to demonstrate that he normally doesn't wear one. He watches as his son is carried in, feeling proud and not a little smug, in this large, conspicuously expensive house that is a monument to both his wealth and his need for everyone to see it. He is circumcising his son for his father, who circumcised him for his father, who survived the concentration camps. Or else because Evan feels an innate subconscious need for his son's dick to resemble his own. And thus the ritual endures, even among the lapsed Jews and their shiksa wives, thanks to a complex, self-perpetuating loop of guilt, narcissism, and daddy issues. The baby is passed to Evan's father, who sits down on the designated chair while the Mohel bends over him, muttering a slew of Hebrew blessings. Silver looks around the room at the gathered friends and relatives, all smiling and taking pictures, and the absurdity of the entire thing washes over him. A group of civilized upper-middle-class Americans getting together for some routine genital mutilation, followed by coffee and bagels. He's pretty sure he saw an omelet station out there on the patio as well. In his admittedly limited experience, he has come to identify 2 kinds of moles: those who believe they are carrying out a sacred rite, and those who couldn't get into medical school. The way this Moel snaps on his latex gloves and unfurls his instrument roll with a flourish leads Silver to believe he is definitely in the latter category. He is in his early 40s, clean-shaven, and clearly enjoys this moment in the spotlight. He pulls out his scalpel and studies it for a moment, then leans over the baby and reaches in. The room first night with the new tongue. The room goes blurry, and Silver realizes that he's in danger of passing out. He leans back against the wall and closes his eyes. The first uncircumcised penis he ever saw belonged to James Nevins. You know, when you write this stuff, you never actually think you're going to be reading it out loud. The first book tour I ever did was for my second book. I'm kind of interrupting myself here, but the book tour I did for my second book, that was called The Book of Joe, was the first time, like, you know, my first book, nobody was interested in having me do a book tour, but the first thing I ever did was at a very large bookstore in Manhattan, and because I didn't really have much of a fan base, I kind of made sure every person I knew in my whole life was there, and so did my parents. So it was a reading that was largely to my parents and their friends and my friends, and I didn't know any better, and I just assumed you read the first chapter, and the first page of the first chapter of the Book of Joe involves fellatio. And then before you get to the end, we get into some masturbation as well. And I'm sitting there, my parents have lined up their whole community, and then there's my high school English teacher over there. And yeah, so at some point you just say, what the hell, and you go. So